So this video is going to show you all you need to know about the GPU, or ground power unit, here at Athens Ben Epps. We typically keep it hooked up to Tug 2 over here. It's hooked up right there on the back, as you can see. And one thing to note is that there is a parking brake for the GPU. So right now it is in up, the lever is up, that's in the off position, so the parking brake is off. Anytime you disconnect it from the Tug, you're going to want to put this in the on position. You're going to want to put the parking brake on, that way it won't roll away, because it is very heavy, and if it starts rolling, sometimes it can be hard to stop and it can do a lot of damage if it runs into anything. But vice versa, you're also going to want to make sure that is up whenever you're hooked up to the Tug, because you don't want to try to drive somewhere and the brake be on. That wouldn't be good. But here's the GPU. It's made by Hobart. Up here we have the exhaust, a few panel lights that don't work too well, these orange lights on the corner. This is where you fuel it. It will take diesel fuel. Come around back here, there's a fire extinguisher for safety. Here's the panel, which I'll show you in more detail in just a second. On this side of it is where you have the power cord housed. It sits right here in this tray. One thing you're going to notice with the end of it is that it's got 3 holes in it. One is a little bit smaller than the others. What you're going to do is, when you pull up to aircraft that ask for a GPU, you're going to find where their GPU hookup is, either by asking the pilot or looking in the aircraft service directory if you're not familiar, or you could always just look around the aircraft. Normally it's under the tail, sometimes it's under the nose, and sometimes there's a little label on it that will say ground power or 24 volts, and that's where this will hook up. Just make sure the small pin lines up with the small hole, and make sure you get it seated in there nice and good before you turn it on. You don't want to not have it in there good, because then you could cause an arc, and that's not something you want to do. So this cord, I really couldn't tell you how long it is off the top of my head, but if you pull it out, it is fairly long enough. You're not going to park too far away from an aircraft. That's one thing worth mentioning before I go any further. When you pull up to aircraft, you're going to want to make sure you pull up with the cord side facing the ground power, because you don't want to have to wrap the cord all the way around. You don't want to pull up too close to the engines. Most of the time, most aircraft that request these are jets that run turbofan engines that don't have an APU. So if they're starting up their engines using the GPU, you're going to want to park it in an area where you can get to the cord, get to the panel, and sit in the Tug and be able to drive away without getting behind the jet blast of the engine, because you don't want to get blasted by the jet engines. That's no fun from experience. But you also want to be careful. You don't want to pull up too close. You don't want to nick the wing or anything. Just be very careful when you're driving this, or any vehicle for that matter, around any aircraft. So coming back over here to the GPU, the first thing you're going to do when you come over here and an aircraft requests it is you're going to turn it on, because you're going to want it to warm up a little bit before you get over to the aircraft, before you turn it on its rated RPM, which is what you want to run it at when you're pumping out power. So this pumps out 24 or 28 volts rather. You can see it right here. You be careful. You only want to connect this to aircraft that take 24 or 28 volts. Some smaller piston aircraft will take 12 volts, and normally it's labeled on the power door 12 or 24, but always ask the pilot just to be sure. Many older aircraft will only take a 12 volt hookup, and I have actually hooked this up to an aircraft that had a 12 volt battery, and I blew it up because the pilot was wrong about the type of voltage it took. So you have to be very careful. If you hook it up to a battery that's a lower voltage, you will damage the battery, damage a lot of systems in the aircraft, and that's not something you want to do. So it's always a good idea to be very careful before hooking this up to any aircraft. So coming over here, the first thing you want to do when you walk back here, notice for one, this thing is up. This is typically closed, but just for the sake of the video, this is kind of foggy and hard to see through. For clarity, I'm going to open this up, but that'll typically always be shut. I'm going to go over some of the gauges real quick. You have oil pressure right here. You have the battery, the tachometer, the fuel, how much fuel is in it, water temperature, the hour meter on it, how long it's been run. Right here you have the starting current, the voltage that it's currently running at, and the amps that are currently being pumped out of it when you're running it. Down here are your controls. Typically you're going to want to turn this on starting from left to right. It's pretty simple. Panel lights over here, you really don't have to worry about too much. These will turn on the lights up top, but you won't be able to see it during the day, and honestly they don't work very well at night, so typically you don't really have to mess with that. You just have this switch, this switch, this switch, and that button. It's pretty simple. What you're going to do is, when you first come over here, you're going to want to run it. So like I said, you're gonna wanna let it warm up before you turn it on its rated RPM. You're gonna wanna hold this switch in the start position. As you can see, there are 3 positions. There's off or shut down. There's fuel check. If you turn this up, the fuel gauge will turn on. There's off, there's on. So you can check the fuel level without turning it all the way on. And then you wanna hold it in the start position. If you hold it in the start position, you'll notice these gauges turn on. What you're gonna wanna do is then hold it in the start position, and while you're holding it, you're gonna wanna press and hold this button until it starts, and then you're gonna release that button, but you're gonna keep holding this switch in the start position until the oil pressure rises. So I'm gonna see if there's a way I can prop this up and show you, because I'm gonna need both hands for this, or maybe not. I don't need both hands. So I'm gonna hold this up, I'm gonna press and hold this. Once it starts, I'm gonna release the button, but I'm gonna keep holding the switch into the start position until that oil needle will start moving. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it. I'm gonna release the button. I'm gonna hold it in the start position until the needle starts moving. It's moving now. I typically like it to get to around 25 PSI. Then you can release it, because if you release it too soon, it'll shut back off. So that oil pressure is continually rising. It'll stabilize somewhere around 50. It won't get too high, but then everything should be running. The engine tach should be up and running. The battery should be shown there. All these gauges. Typically, you don't have to be concerned about them too much. So this is, you'll get the engine running light indicator on. So once that turns on, you're gonna walk over to the tug and you're gonna drive up to the aircraft. You're gonna pull up to the aircraft, and I don't have an aircraft to demonstrate this on, but you're gonna grab this cord, you're gonna take it over to the plug-in, hook it up, make sure it's in there nice and firm. Once you're sure the cord is plugged into the aircraft, you're gonna come over and turn the speed control up to rated. And it'll get a lot louder. Running a lot harder. Once that's on, you're gonna take the output connector. This controls the power cord. So when this is off, no power is being fed through the cord. So you're gonna wanna turn it all the way up and then let it go. And then it'll be in the on position. And then it is now pumping power out to the aircraft. And before you disconnect it, it's always a good idea to come over here and shut this off, and then shut this off, and then pull the cord. Because if you pull the cord while you're still running power through it, you may cause an arc, which is not something you want to happen. It's also a good idea to verify with the pilot that the aircraft is receiving power before you walk away. But that's pretty much it. You'll turn it off in the reverse order that you turned it on. So you turn this on, you started it, you turned the rated RPM on once you got to the aircraft and turned on the cord. When you're ready to disconnect, you'll turn this off. You'll turn this off, you'll disconnect the cord, and you'll just seat it in here back kind of the way I have it right here. And then once you drive away, you're gonna wanna make sure you make visual contact with the pilot. I'll go over the hand signals for GPU connect and disconnect in a different video, but you're gonna wanna make visual contact with the pilot, and this can be as easy as just driving the GPU in front of them and waving at them so that they know the GPU is disconnected and they are free to taxi away. And then once you come back and park it, you're just gonna shut it down. And then that's pretty much all there is to it. Okay guys, I came back to the GPU because after filming the first video, I realized that I kind of just brushed over this dial right here. And this is important to note. The reason I brushed over it so quickly is because we don't actually change this. What this dial is the starting current. And what you're gonna wanna do is, well, you're not gonna wanna do anything. It's set to 1200 right now, kind of around 1200. We don't change that for any reason. Sometimes you'll have pilots asking you to change it. There is no reason to change it, because what this is it sets a certain amount of a limit for the current that it pumps out. And the aircraft will only draw the current that it needs. So the voltage pushes the current out, but the aircraft will only draw the amount of current that it needs. So say it only needs 600 right here, it doesn't matter what it's set on over here because it'll only take 600, and you're not going to get an aircraft that takes more than that. So if any pilot or if anyone asks you to change that, if they're not getting a good connection, there's really no reason to. It doesn't really do anything. So you're not going to want to mess with this. You're going to want to keep it exactly where it is. But I figured that was worth noting to add on to the end of the video.